The current president of the United States, Donald Trump, is arguably at the most critical moment of his controversial presidency. The US's House of Representatives, controlled by the Democrats, announced that they intend to proceed with a political trial of President Donald Trump, which could potentially lead him to being removed from the Oval Office. However, no US president has ever been removed by the United States Congress, and those who were close to being removed by impeachment either resigned or the Senate did not find them guilty. Trump claims that this is all an attempt by the Democratic Party to seize the presidency, and this is nothing more than just a witch hunt. Since the beginning of Trump's term, there had always been a group of Democrats who desired his removal from office by impeachment. But the leader of the party believed that there were not enough valid reasons to impeach Trump at the time. Now with the current events, we know that the president pressured a foreign leader to investigate his political rival and his son, just before the upcoming 2020 presidential elections, which had obviously alerted leaders of the United States. After 3 years of controversy, this is the most that Donald Trump has been at risk from losing his position. But there is so much more at stake than just the White House. This also puts the functioning of America's democracy itself at risk. Today, we will go over the process Trump may very well face in the fight for the highest office in the country, as well as his chances of being dismissed, and examining why it is presumed that he violated the US Constitution. Without further introduction, let's begin. An internal staff member from the Trump administration filed an anonymous complaint that the US president was using his presidential power to pressure Ukraine to launch a criminal investigation against the son of former Vice President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, who conducts business in Ukraine, who Trump accused of corruption. This information was filtered by around mid-September. However, the telephone conversation in question had actually taken place this summer in the month of July. But the new president of Ukraine assumed power in the country after defeating Poroshenko. The whistleblower claims that Trump was blackmailing Ukraine, threatening to take away military and economic aid if Kiev does not investigate the Biden family and their energy business in Europe. As soon as the information was disseminated, the Democrats soon discussed the next step to take. In under a week, all news sources were occupied with this new development. Trump claims that the whistleblower was simply a liar and a traitor of the US. In a tremendous sandstorm, Donald Trump felt pressured, and with his position, even threatened and decided to publish the entire telephone conversation with President Zelensky uncensored. Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the Democratic Party, has announced that there was already a discussion and that the constitutional process would soon begin to remove Trump from office. However, it must also be noted that Democrats had launched the process to remove Trump from office before having read the entire conversation published by the White House itself. The link will be provided in the description below so that you can see the whole transcript yourself. In the phone call, however, Trump explicitly asked for Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's son for alleged corruption, embezzlement, and enrichment with his energy business in Ukraine. During said conversation, Trump suggests that the European Union does not care about Ukraine, and even claimed that Merkel, the German chancellor, has done nothing for Ukraine. Trump continued to claim that the US has greatly helped Ukraine both militarily and economically. In this published conversation, it is perceived that Trump is using America's military aid as a bargaining chip to convince Ukraine to conduct the investigation. He offers legal and diplomatic aid, including aid from the US Department of Justice. The call ends with Trump pressuring Zelensky to investigate corruption in Ukraine, citing again that he believes that there is something odd about the Biden's business in Ukraine. During this call, the aid USA provides was emphasized on more than one occasion, and that Ukraine in a way owes them for this. However, Trump never explicitly stated that they investigate Biden or threatened to take away aid, but it can be inferred contextually that there was a motive behind these words. Some suggest that the motive was to pressure Ukraine to find a way to blame Biden so that the aid provided to Ukraine will continue. It is clear and undeniable that President Trump intends to continue using his executive power of the US presidency for political gain, trying to gain any advantage against the Democratic opponent in the 2020 elections. Seeing the gravity of the situation, Trump decided to publish the entire call, which the Ukrainian president was not pleased with, and states that if the call were to be published, the Ukrainian president's side of the call should have been redacted. The truth is that by publishing this phone call, Trump just made another mistake, as he gave even more evidence for the imminent political trial against him. Trump attempted to involve the son of a political adversary by pressing a foreign government to investigate the situation, and potentially threatened aid being given to said country. Regardless of whether or not Biden's son truly had shady business being conducted in Ukraine, it should not be the US president who leads the efforts to condemn him. It should have been the Department of Justice. But even the Department of Justice should conduct their investigations independently. So going back to the potential political trials against Trump, how will this unfold? First of all, a formal vote must be taken to impeach the president. It must be noted that impeachment and removal are not the same thing. Before reaching conclusions, it is important to know what a political trial and investigation really implies. The impeachment or political trial first passes through the House of Representatives, where Democrats are the majority. If the lower house votes affirmatively to carry out the impeachment, Trump would then be the third president in history to have gone through the impeachment process. The point is that a political trial and investigation does not mean that President Trump will be charged immediately. Instead, this is only the first step in a very long process. Currently, 6 House committees are investigating the president, which, depending on what they find, could lead to the presentation of articles of political judgment for a full vote in the House. Subsequently, in the Senate, there will be a trial where it will be determined if the president has committed a crime or betrayal of the Constitution, and within this trial, the representatives of the lower house will be the prosecutors, and the senators will be the jury. The Supreme Court will be the judge. Finally, the Senate will have to vote. If 2/3 of the 100 senators vote affirmatively, President Trump would lose his position and will be replaced by Vice President Mike Pence. Impeachment can be compared to a prosecutor filing the charges, but it does not mean that the president will be removed from office. So in order to actually remove Trump, bipartisan support for the motion would be required at the president's trial. At this time, the Democrats do not directly control what happens, but a simple majority of the Senate is not enough. A qualified majority is needed. Despite recent events, many Republicans in the Senate do not seem to share the idea of removing Trump from the White House. The Republicans for the moment prefer to keep Trump in power. It is highly unlikely that Trump himself will be dismissed. First of all, there is no president who has been dismissed as such. Yes, there were cases of presidents where the Chamber of Representatives opened an impeachment process, but none of them actually culminated at any occasion with the dismissal of the president. The closest president to be dismissed was Richard Nixon, but he resigned before the Senate could approve. In the Senate, both Republicans and Democrats would need a 2/3 agreement that the president committed betrayal to the Constitution in order for him to be removed. If an unlikely political trial that ends with removal happens, then Trump would be the first president in history to lose his position, and given the nature of his personality, it is highly likely that there will even be a civil response of great proportions. Trump is a politician with a lot of support. We could say with more rejection than support, but even so, a large part of the country supports him. That being said, dismissing him with just 1 year left for the 2020 elections would be a nuclear bomb. If he were to really be kicked out of the White House, then Vice President Mike Pence would take over for the remainder of the term. In doing this, Democrats would replace Trump by someone that is perceived by many to be even more radical than Trump himself. Pence is one of the most conservative of the Republican wing. Trump's impeachment would be a political and civil shock for the country, which would obviously be a bad electoral letter for the Republicans in 2020. Pence would not be able to embody the populist Trump and secure a victory for the Republicans as if he were Trump. Something disturbing is that Trump overshadowed the Republican Party, the party that pretty much supports him in any circumstance, including pressuring a foreign government to investigate the family of a potential opponent for the 2020 elections. Again, if the Biden family has done something irregular, they must respond to the court. But this should be brought by the courts and the American judicial system, not promoted by Trump himself. If Trump were to be dismissed, he could still remain a candidate for the 2020 elections. No president has ever been removed and attempted a re-election, so really there's no precedent. When removed by the Senate, Trump would only be removed from office, but this does not disable him from holding another public office, and a new vote must be done to conduct Trump's political disqualification. But in the unlikely event that Trump is removed as president, he can launch himself again for the 2020 elections, and he could potentially return to the White House the same way that he did in 2016. It would be very interesting to see Trump's reaction in the event of a true impeachment. What would he say or do? Michael Cohen said that it would be comparable to a guest not wanting to leave the house. But the difference is, he'll have the control of the US nuclear arsenal. He also stated that if Trump lost in the next election or is to be removed, he would not be able to make a peaceful transition of power, if there was even a transition in the first place. Even the Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said that Congress should be prepared in case Trump does not want to leave the White House in 2020 if he loses the re-election or is removed from power. The US Constitution does not mention how a president should be removed or if he or she refuses to hand over power. So, it's difficult to say if someone would have the courage to send the FBI or even the army to forcefully remove one from power. If we were to get that far in the impeachment process, it is truly unknown territory, something neither the law nor the US Constitution foresaw. So what if Trump refuses to go? Well, theoretically, he could stay in the White House for a while, but eventually, the vice president would assume his duties even if he does not reside in the White House. It would definitely be an interesting scenario, but almost impossible to imagine. So what can we take away from all this? First of all, Trump might soon be the third US president to face a political trial and investigation, where his fate will be determined by the US Senate. Will he keep his position, or could he be forcefully removed? So what do you think? Do you think that Trump could manage a peaceful transition if it came to that? And do you think his call with the Ukrainian president was justified? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this every week. See you next time.